Hello, this is Kyle Filson of Expanded Perspectives. Expanded Perspectives is an audio podcast where we focus on ancient history, alternative history, cryptozoology, UFOs, the paranormal, and all things bizarre. Please visit our website at www.expandedperspectives.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and here on YouTube. You can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. If you like what you hear, please be sure to rate and write a review for us on iTunes. It really helps us out. Thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoy.
Howdy, folks, and thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale, and joining me, as always, is mi amigo, Mr. Kyle Filson.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey, we are getting really wound up for the run into Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I've got on my sweatpants. I've got on my bib.
I got on my wind pants, yes,
Right.
Elastic waistline.
Oh, man, I cannot wait. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Hope nobody got either froze or blown away. The winds have been ridiculous down here.
Right.
We got some rain in the wind, and there's limbs blowing down. It's like all hell's breaking loose. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we had a house full yesterday for Luke's birthday party.
We had a good party, didn't we?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Good
We
times.
stayed, and then all the adults stayed afterwards, and we watched the UFC.
We got into the UFC. Speaking of the UFC, quick shout out to Joseph, a buddy of ours down there in San Antonio. He keeps up. Yeah, he's listening to the show, and he loves him some UFC now. But yeah, that was a good fight. Main event, your boy, Mr. Frankie Edgar from Toms River, New Jersey.
That's right. Yep.
Going up against Mr. Cub Swanson.
Cub Swanson. Yeah.
And you know what? I never count Frankie out. I was kind of pulling for Cub. I wanted Cub to, Frankie's had the shot, but Frankie straight up outclassed him, man. I was like,
The wrestling,
wow.
man. That wrestling really goes far, you know?
Yeah, he did. And Cub was awful gracious. He lost. It went to, well, I was going to say decision, but Frankie actually tapped him. Got he was going for a rear naked choke, caught him in a face-lock neck crank, turned it and got the tap with just a few seconds left in the match. But he was real good sport about the whole thing and just said, I got exposed and I need to go back and do some training. I need to work a little bit harder on my wrestling game, which I thought was really cool. But to break off of that right fast.
Right, we got an amazing show today.
We're going to have a lot of fun.
We got a really cool guest, as well as some interesting news stories.
Well, I'm glad you brought the news story thing up. I talked the last show, the Thursday show. Mm-hmm. I brought up about a skull on Mars that's been seen, and where a man believes, off of I believe it's Cryptozoology News, he believes
it looks like an elongated skull, right?
Well, yeah, he believes it's the skull of a giant. Well, this is on the Huffington Post now, and they claim, this is by Ed Mazza, he claims that the Mars skull is almost certainly just another rock, is all it says. And it says those who believe the planet once held some form of life see its signs of it everywhere.
Right.
And like we discussed on the other show, that it had gone back to the face on Mars, things like that. Now, it does look like a skull. In the pictures that you see, it looks like a skull kind of partially buried in some sand on a bit of an incline. But they believe it's just another rock. Now, like they say, although the photo was taken several years ago by the panoramic camera on the Spirit rover, and like I talked about, the Paranormal Crucible website recently posted a video of the image on YouTube with the little digital alterations to make it look even more like a skull.
Yes.
So it says now, of course, on the website, you can see the photo on it and all that. Now, UFO Sightings Daily claims there's an 80% chance it's a real skull and says it's about a 15 to 20% longer than a normal human skull.
See, but I don't know how you can just look at a photograph and go, that's 80% chance that that's a real skull. I mean, that's an awfully big claim, don't you think? I mean, there are anomalies in Mother Nature where it looks like the image of something.
Yeah.
Virgin Mary on a piece of toast.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, we see this stuff.
I admit it does kind of look like a skull, but, it's more than likely it's just a rock. But maybe it is.
And like he brings up, they've been doing a little digital editing themselves to it whenever they get it to try to clean it up.
Yeah.
And it makes it look more than really what it is. And I don't know one way or the other. Does it really make it look more than what it is? Or when these guys clean it up, is it really showing it for what it is? Is that a skull? Because they're claiming if this is a skull, it's a 9 or 10 foot tall humanoid that would have a skull this size.
Right? And could you imagine if it really was?
I'm hoping it is. That's
so
crazy.
Cool?
Yes. That would really, it would drive me wild. But I love the fact that the website actually says this. This obviously confirms that giant humanoids roamed the Martian landscape. I love the whole idea of it. So, like I said, folks, jump online. You can punch it up and just humanoid skull on Mars, and get on the Huffington Post, and you can read the articles about it. But it
confirms that giants were there if it's in fact a real skull. That's the problem.
Yeah. And it looks like a skull. It really does. But I can't say yay or nay. I'm like, but it looks like a skull. I hope it is.
I think it's a skull. I think it's the remains or the remnants of the civilization that was nuked up there a long time ago. Did you hear about that?
Yes, I did, because they've also talked about some of the blast glass here and things. It ties into a bunch.
Right. Well, this article comes from Mysterious Universe, our friends Ben and Aaron over there, and it's by Paul Seaburn. Now, the title of this work is Scientists Say Aliens Nuked Martians, and We Might Be Next.
No, great.
Now,
great.
Why do many of the photographs on Mars cam appear to look like structures that have been destroyed and covered with dust? Right? According to the new book by Dr. John Brandenburg, it's because 2 ancient Martian civilizations were annihilated by other aliens using nuclear weapons.
Oh, great.
Right? Now, Brandenburg's book, I can't talk, is called Death on Mars, The Discovery of the Planetary Nuclear Massacre. And this book is going to be published in February 2015. Now, he reviews portions of his findings at the 2014 annual fall meeting of the American Physical Society, and in a paper to be published in the Journal of Cosmology and Astroparticle Physics. You subscribe to that magazine, don't you?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Now, Dr. Brandenburg has previously theorized that the red color of Mars and the radioactive substances in the soil are the result of thermonuclear explosions from natural causes. Now he says that the high concentration of xenon-129 in the Martian atmosphere and the uranium and thorium on the surface are remnants of 2 unnatural nuclear explosions, most likely triggered by alien invaders. Now, who were these aliens invading and eventually wiping out the inhabitants of Mars? Now, Brandenburg believes Mars once had a climate much like Earth and was inhabited by 2 separate civilizations, one in a region called Cydonia Mensa and the other at Galaxius Chaos. Now, why did they only occupy these 2 regions? Now, we don't know the answer to that, but the images of Mars seem to show that it would have been the best places if their climate existed at that time for people or entities to live. We don't know that they were people, right? Now, taken together, the data requires that the hypothesis that Mars was in a site of an ancient planetary nuclear massacre, he says we must now strongly consider. Now, Brandenburg further speculates that the Fermi paradox is due to a powerful alien race wiping out other alien civilizations before they can contact others. He presents this as a reason to visit Mars and study what happened, so we'll know and we can be prepared if they try to wipe us out next. Now, if you're not familiar with the Fermi paradox,
I know what it is. That's a band out of Dallas. It's some friends of ours that listen to the show. For real.
That is a cool name.
Yeah, for real. That's the listeners to the show.
Really? They have that's the name?
That's the name of their band. The whole thing. They got some really cool music.
Okay, what the Fermi paradox is it's the apparent contradiction between the high estimates of the probability of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and our lack of ability to contact. There's that theory out there that says, there's millions and billions and billions and billions. If there were all these other civilizations, then why haven't we had contact with them? That's what that Fermi's paradox is.
Because they don't want to have contact with us. Look at us.
Right? Well, he's saying that these other aliens, that's why you haven't seen anybody, is because they're going around wiping all these other cultures out.
Oh, great.
I'm going to have to get a hold of that book.
Yeah, for real. We need to get that book.
Right? Death on Mars, The Discovery of a Planetary Nuclear Massacre. And that's going to be out in 2015. So,
it's on then.
Yeah, maybe we can talk to him.
We're doing it. Yeah, it's going to happen. Philly, ever since we had the Mr. Andrew Collins on, I've been looking into a lot of... like when he was talking about the Squidarians and the Denisovans and the Homo sapiens. And anyway, and I come across an article, and it claims that Neanderthals were not a subspecies of modern man, but were a whole separate species, which is exactly kind of what Andrew was leading to, is they found these other species, and it's not just an offshoot, it's a whole separate species of man. And here's how they figured it out: by studying the nasal complex in the skull.
Really?
Now, it sounds insane, but they say that it's evolved separately from modern humans, and that there's a large body of evidence that shows, and the reason how they did this is they took a skull and they basically scanned it in. Now, this is Samuel Marquez, an associate professor at the Center's Department of Cell Biology there in New York City in the Downstate Medical Center.
Right.
And they basically scanned it all in. And
like a CT scan or something? Yeah.
And they've been going through this whole thing. And it says that this is because the structures have a separate involuntary history and features. It says not found any of it among other populations of humans. So these skulls have certain things in them that's nowhere else in any of the other.
It's
completely unique to that species. Which, like we've always said, we've always thought, is there multiple species that lived here? And then, the human race, the human species just kind of beat them out. Well, that's kind of what it sounds like.
Beat them out or even hunted down and killed them.
They're talking about, they said that the study that they've used says that the probability was due to competition with modern humans.
Right.
And not their inability to adapt to the cooling climate. That's what they always thought, was it got cold, they couldn't adapt, and they died. Well, that's really not what it was. It almost sounds like like you were saying, they were either killed, they were pushed out, and maybe even bred completely out of existence. As they bred with other human beings, maybe, ours, had something that made us a little bit tougher as we were, getting along, and we just outpopulated them till they were just bred out of existence.
Yeah, I can totally
see. They talk about the DNA that we have of Neanderthals.
Well, and a lot of people's theories are that we evolved from apes and stuff like that. And then later, it's come out like that there's several different species that probably, but even those separate species probably intermingled. I can totally believe that. I mean, I see guys like George the Animal Steele. He looks like he's been bred from, more than just Homo sapiens.
Neanderthal DNA.
Right. A little more Neanderthal DNA than a normal person. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you see guys and girls that they look beautiful skin, beautiful features. They don't look anything like a Neanderthal.
A lot like me.
No, you're more like the Neanderthal.
Yeah, I'm the bridge troll.
But you know what I'm saying? I can see how that could happen. How there'd be separate species and interbred species together too. Much like the canine world.
Well, exactly. Well, they even went back and did a. When I say they, it was done in, I believe the Europeans actually started it off in Copenhagen. But I remember that they did it, they traced it back to like 54,000 years ago when Neanderthal interbreeding, they can first tell, started in the genome of what we have now. So
I could totally buy it.
We've kind of been, and it kind of brings up the whole idea about the Denisovians, as he's talking about that they have found that there's a whole nother species out there that we didn't even know about of human being, basically. Because you look at this, you look at a Neanderthal, they're basically us, just built a little different.
Well, look at dogs, like I was talking about. Apparently, they're all descendants of wolves.
Yeah.
How can that be? I mean, look at the wide range in dogs from, I don't know, little tiny Dobermans all the way up to giant Great Danes, to Newfoundlands and stuff. I mean, they're just, down to little Chihuahuas. I mean, how can that all be? But it basically is the same subspecies.
Yeah.
So you could see how if there was multiple species of upright walking beings, whether it's Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, Gigantopithecus, whatever, there is probably interbreeding amongst them, and then we're really just a mash pot of what's left over.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty cool. Did you see this on UFOsightings.com? A former American history professor believes alien-human hybrids will soon take over Earth. So we're speaking of hybrids.
Oh,
now we're talking about alien-human hybrids, right?
Yeah, awesome.
Now, retired Professor David Jacobs believes alien abduction on humans has been happening to create alien-human hybrids who are walking all over the Earth today and will eventually take over Earth.
I've seen a few strange-looking individuals that look like they're a little bit of a hybridization of a gray.
Right. Now, Jacob knows every time he talks about it, he's being ridiculed by a lot of ordinary people and skeptics, but he long stopped caring about what people think of him. Now 71, Jacobs has made investigations on extraterrestrial abductions his new mission. Now, he's currently working on his 5th book, and he was a professor for 36 years teaching American history at Temple University before eventually retiring, Cam, in 2011. Now, his first 4 books were printed, by leading and academic publishers, and he ensures to apply a scholarly approach to his research. Now, Jacobs has talked with around 150 people who each claim that they were victims of alien abduction. Now, in his very own estimates, based on public polls, space aliens kidnapped over 1 million Americans so far. Can you believe that?
Oof.
While he admits that the evidence on extraterrestrial body snatching and extraterrestrial life itself is weak, he insists that evidence exists. Now, he cites the following evidence. Number one, Cam, abductees have been reporting similar experiences and recalling common details, such as a mission to breed, human-like or insect-like appearance from extraterrestrials. Number two, people were absent physically during the time they were abducted. Missing time, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And some loved ones or family members claimed that they saw them actually disappear. Sometimes, number three, sometimes abductees were taken in groups composed of people who never met before on Earth and shared their abduction experiences together when they finally met on Earth after the abduction.
Right on.
And number four, people return with strange marks, scars, or injuries in which Jacobs claims that he himself has actually seen. So this is bizarre, right?
That is.
You're always talking about when are these guys going to show up? When is the invasion going to happen?
It's here.
It's already happened. They're smart enough to not want us. Look, if they do look like what they claim, small, thin, frail bodies, 4 foot tall, they're not going to be able to fight guys like Cub Swanson,
No.
Frank Edgar,
No.
or even just a common person.
No.
They know that. And maybe they're not, maybe they're super sophisticated in travel, interdimensional maybe, or hyperspace warp speeds and stuff, but maybe they're not real good at when it comes to just like fighting. And they've been observing this culture.
Yeah,
I'm talking about even with their ships.
Yeah.
They might be like, look, if we launch a full attack, their Air Force, it's going to be a real problem.
Yeah.
So what's the next best thing to do? Much like in, what's the movie Braveheart? Remember Mel Gibson when he's talking about getting rid of the Scots? And he's like, if we can't beat them out, we'll breed them out.
Yep. That's what they do.
That's what they've been doing. They are slowly mixing with humankind, and they've been breeding. And eventually, when they get the numbers up, when there's more human-alien hybrids, Shazam!
It reminds me.
That's when they launch it, right? Maybe that's what's happening.
Makes me think of Roger off of that cartoon on Fox called American Dad, and it shows that alien gray guy that's always on there, and he's got like the big blonde wig, and he just looks like E.T. in a wig. That just makes me think of, hey, sailor, and he comes walking up, like, what? Whoa, what's up? I hadn't drank enough yet. Come here.
So maybe that's happening.
Maybe.
Or maybe this dude's just super paranoid.
Maybe both. Man, I don't know. I hope it's not happening, but I have seen some strange-looking folks.
Oh, right.
Some strange-looking folks. I tell you what, now that we're on the UFO kick, we've got a great interview tonight.
Right? All about UFOs.
Or today, or whenever you're listening. It's all about UFOs. It's Robert Salas. Now, Robert Salas actually wrote the book, Unidentified, the UFO Phenomenon. Now, get a load of this here. Robert graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1964. He served 7 years of active duty before separating from the Air Force in 71. But now listen, while he was on active duty, he worked as a weapons controller, which he flew like target drones and commanded intercontinental ballistic missiles, and he was a launch officer for them.
Yes.
Now, as he worked with the Air Force and missile propulsion engineer, and he actually worked on the Titan III program. And then from 71 to 73, he was a safety and reliability engineer for Martin-Marietta Aerospace and Rockwell International on the Space Shuttle design proposals. Now, from 74 to 95, when he retired, he worked for the FAA. And what he did is he worked as an aircraft structures certification engineer at that time. So the guy's seen all kinds of stuff, and he actually published his first book in 05 called Faded Giant with James Klotz, which detailed a UFO incident while stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Right.
There in Montana in 67.
And people might have heard of that.
Yes. Well, then now this book covers the fact that when he was in a bunker underground, when the UFOs were turning off and turning on all the control systems for the missiles.
That's right.
That he was in control of, too. Now, here's something cool. In September 27th of 2010, he co-sponsored a press conference at the National Press Club in D.C., where he, Robert, and 6 other ex-military witnesses testified to the reality of the UFO incidents at the nuclear weapons base. Now, in May of 13, he participated in a citizens' hearing on disclosure at the press club in D.C. that we talked about, too, a while back. And then now, of course, he's publicly speaking on all the UFO stuff. And, of course, like I said, you can go to his website. You can go check it out. It's called spiralgalaxy.org, all one word, spiralgalaxy.org. But it was a great interview. What I love about Robert is he's older guy. He's no nonsense. He's just dry, cut, and to the point about everything.
Absolutely. And we're talking, we're talking about the testimony and story from a man who is a missile launch operator.
Yep.
The highest clearance probably possible. I mean,
Yeah.
they're entrusting him with launch codes and missiles that can, destroy the Earth. So, there's no nonsense kind of guy.
Yeah.
And for him to have a claim like this, and this isn't the first one. I mean, there's many. I mean, that's what I find so interesting with it. It was a real treat to get to speak with the man.
It was great times.
Well, stay with us, folks. We're going to get into that interview after the break. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest tonight, Mr. Robert Salas, and we're going to be talking about his new book, Unidentified, the UFO Phenomenon, How World Governments Have Conspired to Conceal Humanity's Biggest Secret. Mr. Salas, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. I hope you're staying warm over there. You're in California, is that correct?
Yeah, we're plenty warm here.
That's good. Well, we had a little snow here in North Texas last evening, but it's not too bad. It got up to about 50 degrees today.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's nice weather right now. Really nice weather.
Well, I just want to start off in saying I love your new book. It really is, and it was a joy to read. I liked it from cover to cover. You brought up some interesting topics and facts, and I would love to talk to you about some of that tonight. But can you start out by telling us your background, when you joined the Air Force Academy, when you graduated, and how you became a missile launch officer in charge of nuclear-armed Minuteman I missiles?
Right. I entered the academy in 1960, graduated in 1964. 1965, mid-1965, I had actually volunteered for duty in Vietnam, but they didn't have a position for me at that time, and then they came back and said they did have a assignment at Malmstrom Air Force Base as a missile launch officer, and I could get my master's degree. So I opted for that. And so I was trained as a missile launch officer, arrived at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1966, August of 66, and got on a two-man crew with my commander, Fred Mywald, at the time, and became a two-man crew October of 66, and then that's how I got into the missile field. Did you want me to go into the incident that got me interested in this subject?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I was going to get into that next. Can you tell us about the events that took place while you were in, what is it called, Oscar Flight? Is that the name of the capsule there at Malmstrom Air Force Base?
Yeah, we had some 15 flights of missiles. So each flight had 10 missiles, and these were Minuteman I missiles primarily. They were starting to upgrade the force about this time, but those hadn't been upgraded yet. These were all Minuteman I missiles. We were at Oscar Flight, which is about 100 miles due east of Great Falls, Montana, and near a little town called Roy, Montana. On this particular evening, it was March 24th, 1967. We were on duty, underground bunker type facility, about 60 feet underground. We had 6 guards topside, but we were locked in for 24 hours, so we had to stay. We had a huge door that was secured the facility. The guards upstairs had no way of controlling the missiles in any way. They had no controls up there. All the controls were underground. Well, first I get a call from the topside guard saying they're seeing strange lights in the sky and don't know what they are. They're not airplanes. They're flying extremely fast, stopping on a dime, reversing course, making 90-degree turns. I even mentioned, you mean like UFOs? And he kind of said, well, he couldn't explain it, but he wanted to report us. It was a serious report. He wasn't joking. Hung up the phone, and then about 5 minutes later he calls back. He's screaming into the phone this time. He's frightened. He's saying he's got all the guards out there, and they're looking at the front gate, and there's this glowing red object, kind of oval-shaped light, and pulsating, a reddish-orange light, hovering above the front gate. Scared to death.
Yeah.
You can't explain what the heck it is, and so he wanted me to tell him what to do next. I told him don't let anything inside, and then he hung up. Went to tell my commander about these phone calls, and all of a sudden we're getting bells and whistles going off, and lights turning from green to red on our panel, our status panel, which showed us status of the missiles, and so all the 10 missiles went down into unlaunchable condition, no go.
That's no good.
No good. While this thing was still up there, we also had some security lights. So we reported, of course, to the base command post, and then I called back upstairs, because we had sent guards out to two of the sites that had security alarm indications where the missiles are actually located about a mile or two away from the launch control center in a kind of a ring. And so we had to send those guards out there. They reported back saying, them again out there, UFOs or lights above the facilities. So then, and then when we called into the command post at Malmstrom, they told us that the same thing had happened at another site. And I thought that it happened that night, but it turns out, as I later found out, that it happened a week earlier, and that was called the Echo Flight Incident. So we, within the span of very similar incident, UFOs were observed again by maintenance personnel and security personnel. Within the span of 8 days, we lost 20 nuclear missiles to UFOs.
Wow. Now, but you were able to regain control of them right after a period of time?
Yeah, the indication, we had a way of querying the system. The fault was guidance and control system failure. So that was a matter of sending maintenance teams out there to realign the missiles. It's called a target alignment procedure, where the missiles had just been misaligned, or there was a signal that upset the logic coupler, which is part of the guidance package for the missile. Once it's launched, it's of course directed to a particular target, and this is a very sensitive piece of equipment, but that is what the problem was. So yeah, we were able to get them back up online within about 24 hours. There was no damage to the missiles themselves.
Mr. Salas, what would have been, I guess, is there a way this could have happened, like be explained as like, I guess, a glitch in the system, or like something wrong with the computer programming or something like that? Or is this something that actually had to be, like, your opinion? Is there anything that could have explained it aside from what was going on above?
Yeah, we made contact after I went public with this in '96. We made contact with the head of the team, the Boeing team that did the investigation on these shutdowns, and they eliminated everything they could think of. They looked at the computer system that we had in the capsule. They looked at the reliability of the individuals involved. They looked at power surge. There were no power surges. As a matter of fact, we didn't lose power at all. And they could not come up with a viable conclusion as to what could have caused this shutdown. Now, what needed to happen was this object would have had to send a specific signal through 60 feet of earth and concrete, and then penetrate the triply shielded cabling system that we had going out to each missile separately, and sending this signal to a particular piece of equipment called the logic coupler, which was part of the guidance package, and upset the logic coupler. Now, this is highly, highly improbable.
Yeah.
And I'm using the words that that the Air Force used in the documents we received under the Freedom of Information Act. I've got a lot of documents as a result of my inquiry.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine. I mean, this would be the most secure site that there would be. I mean, you're talking about something in control of the nuclear arsenal. They're not going to just leave it open to where people can just hack in. And now, you mentioned it happened earlier at another location at Echo Flight. Now, how far away is Echo Flight from where you're located? And did that happen a couple days prior to this or a couple days after?
Like a week before.
Week before?
Yeah, it happened actually March 16th. We know these dates exactly because we've got, for Echo Flight, we've got a lot of documentation.
Right, so there it happened twice. So, I mean, that would, even if there was like a malfunction somewhere within the system, it wouldn't happen twice. Now, my other question would be, if this happened a couple of days before you went to work that day on March 24th, did no supervisor or anything make mention to, like, hey, pay attention a little extra, there's some strange phenomena? No.
The Echo Flight incident was classified.
Right, so they didn't even let the different guys talk to each other about it.
Exactly. Nobody was supposed to talk to anybody about this.
Wow.
And the reason was because there was an ongoing study, the Condon investigation, you probably heard of.
Yes, sir.
Started in August of 66 and ended in December of 68. But that was ongoing, and the Air Force, of course, did not want the Condon investigation snooping around and finding out about these incidents. They tried, and I go into that in my book.
Mm-hmm.
They tried, but were rebuffed and told this was classified. And even though they were supposed to have access to all classified information, but anyway, it was a whitewash, and so that's why they told us or ordered us never to talk about this to anyone, even people within the Air Force.
Right. And I can imagine when it first started happening, the day or the evening you were there, I mean, when you're hearing the tales from the guards up above, you must have thought that you were under attack somehow. Like there was a rogue group attacking the base, or...
I did.
Yeah.
I felt that. I felt that there's some kind of an attack going on upstairs because these guys had all their weapons drawn. They were frightened. They saw something very strange. Couldn't explain it. In fact, they called me the next day after I was relieved and begged me to come talk to them. They wanted to sit down and just discuss what had happened, et cetera, and get it off their chest because. And I told them I can't. I've been ordered not to in writing. I had to sign a non-disclosure statement, so I couldn't talk to them afterwards.
Did you ever get the feeling like they were trying to? Maybe not the men up top, but maybe others were trying to feel you out to see what your thoughts were of what was going on, so they knew if they had a problem with you, maybe you were going to leak it?
Oh, you think if they set me up?
Yeah, like somebody's trying to walk you into something, almost like a lawyer would walk you into some confessing something.
That's a possibility. They could have set me up. By they, I'm talking about Air Force Office of Special Investigation. They're the ones that shoved this piece of paper at me and said, sign here. And that had penalties associated with it, including jail time. So that's correct. That call could have been a potential setup. If I had agreed to go see those guys, that would have been a violation of that statement.
So it's almost like they're trying to see if you were going to be a trustworthy individual at this point. And they knew you were up until the job they gave you, but now they were like, this is almost taking it a little too far to go, no, now we got to trust him with this information too.
Yeah, and that's what they do. This secret group, they check up on witnesses. They keep tabs of them for a long time.
Well, and I imagine that, I mean, you had to have a very clear background to get in a position to where you're the missile launch control officer. I mean, so the fact that you are a witness to this, I mean, you're very credible, you know. In your book, you also mentioned that there was another sighting earlier that day by an airman, Sidney Young. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, Sidney Young. Okay. He was traveling back. I think he was on leave, and he was traveling back to his home. He also lived in Montana, but on his way home, and this was west of the base, he happened to notice a very bright beam of light coming down from the sky, and this was not sunlight, because he said the sun was in the other direction, and this light was coming from the north, and he said it was very strange. But that was something I put in my book just to show that there was more activity on that particular day. In addition to that, there was a very famous sighting called the Belt sighting on March 24th, the same day as my incident, where a truck driver was driving along the highway towards Great Falls, and in the early evening, and he sees this UFO just to his left. It's kind of pacing him, same speed, bright light again. He stops. He watches this light land in a ravine, and he calls the highway patrol. The highway patrol comes out, and they see it. They both see it landed in this ravine. And this was written up as a blue book file, and anybody can read it. It's a very well-known case.
Mr. Salas, I know they told you that, you know, they made you sign the non-disclosure, and they pretty much wanted you to kind of forget about it. Did anybody ever talk to you after it was all said and done, or was like the next few days at work, or did it give you like any time off to reflect, or were you just like, they just put you right back in there, and it was just like, well, you need to forget this ever happened and go on about your day? Exactly.
That's what happened. I was not given any time off to reflect on it. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. So, you know, to me, this, you know, this made it worse, because this stuck with me. It stuck with me for the rest of my life. You know, you can't forget anything like this.
Yeah, like you were talking about the guys up top. If they were treated the same way, that's like a PTSD itself, is dealing with something like this, and then you're like, no, you didn't see that. You just keep your mouth closed, keep your head down, and go back to work.
Exactly, yeah. You don't forget this sort of thing. I'm sure those guys never forgot this. Well, the other thing they do with the airmen, what they did is they dispersed them. A lot of them went to Vietnam, you know, because they had weapons training, and then the others were dispersed to different bases, because they don't want them getting together and talking about this and starting more rumors about it.
Collaborate their stories together and things, building from that point. Yeah, they got to, that's their way of keeping tabs on the whole thing. Just break them up.
Right.
And you said earlier that you didn't even know about the Echo flight till many years later, right?
Exactly. You know,
and there's numerous other cases of similar events, not just here in America, but even in the Soviet Union. They had similar activity where their missile stuff was turned off by UFOs. Mm-hmm. And even in your book, you detail something that took place at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota in 1976, I think.
Yes.
Where the guys were, even the guards, a similar thing, were shooting with their M16s at it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is another report, very similar to mine. This object comes over the launch control facility, and the guards come out, and they actually started shooting at this object. They shot 180 rounds. And this is the reason I know this is because the commander of the facility, I call him John Doe because he can't come forward. He's still got actually still got a government job, and he needs to protect it. So, and this is a strange one because he actually was ordered the next day to ensure that they picked up every single shell casing. And so that's how they came up with the number 180 rounds. And of course, it didn't do anything to the lighted object. He was actually taken to a hospital against his will. He was held in a hospital even though he wasn't ill. And he was interrogated. The Office of Naval Intelligence got involved for some reason, because this was an Air Force base. And he was interrogated under drugs. They drugged him. And that's interesting, again, because of the Rendlesham Forest case. This is 1980 case in the UK, where many witnesses were interrogated and injected with drugs during interrogation. These drugs were supposedly for the purpose of acquiring more information, more details, but they could also be used to implant false memories. And also Office of Naval Intelligence was involved in that incident, the Rendlesham Forest incident, 1980. So there's a pattern here involving intelligence groups within the military that are involved in these investigations. And the 76, by the way, was much later than 1969. The Air Force in 1969 stated publicly that they were no longer going to investigate UFO incidents. And so this goes against that proclamation. Yeah.
Were you ever approached by anyone that you felt was, after, like say the years after, or even since you've released the book and just recently, have you been approached by anybody that you feel that may be trying to fill you out now?
No, I can't say I've been overtly approached to stop talking or threatening me or anything like that.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, and I think it's because I came out early and hard because I had evidence. When I first came out, I had documents to support my case and witnesses.
Mr. Salas, do you have and I know it's just an opinion, but do you have an opinion as to why you think these extraterrestrials are attracted to nuclear facilities like that? Nuclear plants, nuclear warhead facilities? It seems like they're constantly monitoring what we're doing, or they seem to be very interested in what we're doing when it comes to that. Do you have an opinion?
Sure, I've got an opinion. There have been so many of these incidents involving nuclear weapons facilities, right. And I list many of these in my book. UFOs, not doing any damage to them, just simply flying over, shining a beam of light over, let's say, weapons storage areas like they did at Rendlesham. And there's other cases. I go into a case in the Netherlands, Soesterberg, and also one in Italy. So I think basically they're just sending us a message, and the message is get rid of these nuclear weapons. They are extremely dangerous to our civilization and all living things on the planet if we were to have a nuclear war. And that's obvious to anybody that's ever studied these things. The weapon that I had, the nuclear weapons destructive ability in the Minuteman I missile was 800 kilotons. That's enough to engulf a major city in a fireball. I mean, completely engulf it. And that's just one missile, one bomb. In 1967, we had about 37,000 nuclear weapons, including, submarines and what have you, other missiles, bombers, etc. And today we're still involved in a very precarious situation with regard to nuclear weapons.
And I think in order for the listeners to kind of get an idea of it, when you were talking about the 800 kilotons, it's like Hiroshima's, maybe 15 or 20?
Exactly. About 15 to 20 kilotons.
Man, I can't imagine that.
800.
Just one nuclear warhead is got that much power.
That's right.
You're talking about wiping a large city off the map, like say a city of L.A. You're talking about having the ability to erase that,
right?
Most of L.A. would have been engulfed in a fireball, and then fallout after that. So
maybe they believe that we're not responsible enough for sure. Like, these people don't need this; they need to turn this off. They can't get along at all in the grocery store line. They definitely don't need to be having these kind of toys. Mr. Salas, you keep saying they, and we keep getting off into the trails of they, and we haven't really looked at. I have heard you discuss before and talk about that you even feel that maybe some of your classmates became involved in this group, of this kind of behind-the-scenes group that has a job of covering it up. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt about that. We're talking about graduates of the academies are, usually the most highly prized officers in the military, and they're given the greatest responsibilities. So, but specifically in 1969, I was reassigned to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to finish my master's degree. They told me I was going to be finishing my master's degree there, but of course Wright-Patterson was the home of Blue Book prior to 69, and of course it was supposed to be the command central of the UFO cover-up.
That's right. Isn't that where they took the Roswell wreckage after
Fort Worth? Right, yeah. Right, supposedly.
Right.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So I arrive at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and not too long after I arrive, I'm approached by one of the officers who had been a class ahead of me at the Air Force Academy. He approached me, said he was glad to see me, even though he gave me a lot of hazing when I was a young cadet. But he said he was glad to see me. He had a job for me. I said, well, wait a minute, I'm just here to get my master's degree. I got to do that first. And he said, well, we'll talk later. And so a little after that, a couple of weeks after that, I get a call from the base psychiatrist's office. Now, I hadn't complained about any mental issues, but they wanted me to come in and talk to the base psychiatrist. Now, so I go in there, but I wanted to know why I was there. So I kept asking the orderly, why am I here? Why do I need to see the base psychiatrist? And he said, well, he'll tell you. And, okay, why don't you come on back and we'll talk to the base psychiatrist. I said, no, I'm not going to do this unless he comes out here and explains to me why exactly I'm here.
Right.
So he goes back, talks to the base psychiatrist, and he comes back to me and said, you can go now, sir. So they really didn't have a good reason, so I'm speculating again that if I had gone back there, he may have gotten me to talk about my UFO incident at Malmstrom, and that would have gone on my record. Or, alternatively, they could have recruited me to be part of this cover-up team, a group in the know about the UFO phenomenon. So, but that's speculation. But I'm suspicious that that's what was going on there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, do you know, do you think the officer that approached you there at Wright-Patterson, do you think he was privy to the information that you knew?
Well, again, I'm just speculating.
Right.
But
okay.
It was just a strange
that is strange.
Sequence of events. I hadn't seen this guy since he graduated from the academy.
Right, he immediately
in
noticed you. Yeah.
63, and this was 1969, 6 years later, and he greeted me like I was an old lost buddy, and we weren't really buddies, let's put it that way.
Well, that is strange, because I remember, I think it was another interview I've heard of yours where you had spoke of running into another one of your classmates on a plane, and he was speaking of flying something. And you
Right.
made a joke, and he didn't really take it as a joke almost, and used a word that I had never even heard used as a term of what was used in the Air Force, as MiG.
Right.
And we've all known it as just, meaning, every time I think of it, I think of the old Top Gun movie, and it means like a Russian fighter plane, but that's not really kind of the intention he had behind it. Speculating, of course, it seemed a little odd, but it was a funny story.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think you correctly stated it, but we were both flying on the same aircraft, commercial flight, from Southern California up north somewhere. And I happened to run into him in the aisleway. Again, this is a guy I'd spent 4 years with. Now, this guy I knew very well, extremely well.
No hazing involved?
No hazing. We were
the hazers?
we were classmates. And so we really were glad to see each other. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. And then he told me, he said, "Hey, you never guess what I'm flying." And I said, I was kidding. I just said, "What, a UFO?" And he just turned white as a sheet. He grabbed the back of my neck and whispered in my ear, "MiG, M-I-G," and then walked back to his seat. I walked back to my seat. I thought he was going to wait for me after we landed so we could spend some time together, but he just took off. And again, this is another strange coincidence. Now, MiG was a term that was used within the Project Blue Book office, referring to when they talked about UFOs. They would use the term MiG at times, and the reason was because this was the Office of Foreign Technology that Wright-Patterson actually analyzed the performance of Soviet aircraft, or MiGs. And that was part of their job. Part of their job was to analyze foreign aircraft. But the UFO group was a part of that foreign tech division. So every once in a while they'd refer to these UFOs as MiGs.
Man, that's interesting. That is very interesting.
Well, it's so odd because it's so strange to have all these coincidental run-ins with old classmates.
Right. So that may be another reason I haven't been approached. Is some of my old classmates are in the know in this phenomenon, and they're kind of, maybe they're protecting me a little bit. I don't know.
It doesn't seem like you've ever been off their radar.
No,
Ever since all this went down, it seems like they've kept tabs on you from the start of that day. From the 24th on, they've had their eye on you this whole time.
Right. I think so.
Why do you think they feel necessary today to keep it covered, to keep all this hidden and tucked away?
Yeah, I think today it's more of an issue of greed and power. When you think about it, to me, there's no doubt they've recovered craft. There have been reports of crashes, credible reports where craft have been recovered. And certainly they would have tried to back engineer the technology they found. And some of this technology obviously would have commercial applications. It would be new technology, something we hadn't seen before. Fly-by-wire comes to mind. It's the new technology that's being used, or it was new a while back. It's being used on the Airbus, for example. Mm-hmm. Instead of steel cables and linkages for control surfaces like elevators, etc. They're using wireless or wire connections to pieces of equipment. So that might be part of the technology they found, because some reports say they found bundles of plastic-looking wire. Fiber optics would be another one. Anyway, that may be the reason they're peddling this technology to industry for commercial purposes. and military applications. Some of the phenomenon may be useful, well, I'm sure a lot of it military applications. So, and then the power comes from dealing with other countries or other intelligence agencies. I'll give you a little of this information, you give me a little of that information, we'll do a little tit for tat. We do know that intelligence agencies within countries or between countries, cooperation does happen. Even though we may be enemies, sometimes there is some kind of cooperation. So I think that's more of the reasons it's being held secret now than the fear of, let's say, panic by the public.
I gotcha. That was the next thing that we were going to discuss was it seems that other countries have talked about it and kind of released their statements on it, but it seems like the U.S. is reluctant to it, and it seems, it almost feels like it's because if they start talking about it now, and they've covered it up for so long, that it's going to open a can of worms, that it's going to be hard to go back and say, yeah, sorry about all that, and then they're going to be, what else have you lied about?
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Politically, if they did reveal that, yes, indeed, we've got these visitors from elsewhere, but we can't do anything about it, then, how do you square that with the public? Because the governments are supposed to protect us. And they're supposed to figure out ways of protecting the public from things like this. And they can't. They really can't control what these ETs are going to do. And they're very, they've got very powerful, forces that they can use, and things that we don't know how they operate. Like we don't know how their craft operate. We don't know how they can shut down our missiles.
Yeah, for real. Have you ever had a sighting or anything that you're willing to discuss? You ever seen anything that was out of the ordinary? Even being after.
Well, you're alluding to my 1985, I think.
I'm going to give you way out. If you want to talk about it, you can. If you don't, I completely understand.
No, I will talk about it because that's one of the reasons. But I want the public to realize that this is part of the phenomenon. That's the abduction scenario of the phenomenon. 1985, I was, I'd been out of the Air Force. I was out of the Air Force in 71. I was working for FAA at the time, living in Manhattan Beach, California, at a particular house, I recall, with my wife and two small kids in the house. And on this evening, I wake up for some reason and notice that there's a bluish light coming from the living room of our house. It's almost like a misty, smoky fog coming in to our bedroom. I wake up my wife. She also sees the blue light. Tell her I'm going to get up and investigate, and lo and behold, I can't move. I'm paralyzed. I'm just paralyzed. And I struggle. That's one of the reasons I'm convinced this is not a dream, is because I remember the lengths at which I struggled to try and regain my mobility. I turned to my wife for help, and she's out. She's unconscious at this point. Next thing I remember is seeing a hooded figure in the doorway, and being aware that there's others in the room. I don't recall faces at this point. And then next thing, I'm floating off the bed and floating towards a locked window that we had in our bedroom. And I even thought to myself, well, they don't know how to open this window. And I'm thinking back now, and that's because I thought these were relatively small or young beings, and they didn't understand how windows worked. But it didn't matter because I went right through the window. And I know that sounds strange, very strange, but that's what I was able to get from about 4 therapy sessions I've had. And so I go right through the window. Next thing, I'm on ostensibly on a craft, on a table, being shown a long needle. Now, they placed this needle right in front of my eyes to make sure I saw it, and told me, probably telepathically, because I don't remember any voices, that they were going to insert this into my groin area, and it would not hurt.
Oh, they're lying.
Yeah.
But it was very painful, and I had complained about the pain, and immediately the pain went away. So, again, I remember the extent of that pain. It was very extreme, excruciating pain. After that, I was taken off the table, escorted by two beings through a tunnel area, and then back to my bedroom. And that was that. The next morning, I did not remember anything about this. My wife didn't remember anything about this. So, flash forward to about 2007. By this time, I had talked to many other abductees, at these conferences. I've been speaking about this for about 20 years now. And some of these, what I just told you, started coming back in flashes. And of course, at first I thought these were just bad dreams. Until my wife said that she saw the blue light on that evening. Now, I've been with my wife for 43 years. I know her very well, and I know she would not make this up. She told me she also recalls seeing the blue light. That's when I went to get hypnotherapy sessions. I had about 4 of them, and this is the information I've gotten from that as a result of those sessions, what I just told you.
And
so, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you, is this the only time that you can remember being taken? Or I guess my question is do you think maybe it could be a result of the experience back at Malmstrom in 1967? Or do you think that they maybe have been visiting you since you were a child because you hear about that? I just want to know what you thought.
I can't. I've had these instances as a child. But I think I've been taken more than once. And the reason I say that is because when my wife and I discussed this further, she recalls the bedroom door being in a different location. She recalls other facts that were different from what I just told you. So we think that this has happened more than once. And then she's had her own incident, which is completely different from what I just told you. So we think that she's been taken separately. I've been taken separately.
Really? So she's gone and done some of the therapy sessions also?
No, she has not.
If she don't go, I don't blame her.
She said she doesn't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
me and Kyle know someone that's the same way. That's had something, but they refuse to go. They're like, I don't want to know any more about it.
Right. That's the way she feels at this point. But I did want to go public with this because I want to support all the thousands and thousands of other people out there that have been abducted. This is part of the phenomenon. They have some purpose in mind in doing this, and I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. But there's obviously some objective, probably having to do with the production of hybrid children. So the rest is speculation.
Do you think, we're going to continue to speculate a little bit, do you think that are any of those people involved as far as maybe some of the hybrids? Are they involved in this group to help keep it covered up?
I have no way of knowing that. I doubt it. But, I've heard stories, and at this point, at first I'd kind of dismiss a lot of this outlandish speculative stuff, but at this point I don't dismiss any of it. I just say, well, it's possible, and but I'm waiting for backup evidence to support some of this stuff.
Because it seems like the U.S. is still kind of almost at the wheel of all this cover-up when it comes to
think
anything UFO. I mean, it really does seem like we kind of big brother all the other countries when it comes to anything ufological.
I think so. Yeah, because the U.S. has, of course, been a superpower for a long time, and of course, this happened in 1947. We were the only nuclear power at that time. The Roswell incident, I think, kicked all this off, the cover-up, and so the U.S. took the lead very, very quickly. Other countries were reporting UFO events, so the U.S. probably sent agents down there to get information and developed rapport with other intelligence agencies in other countries, and to the point where it's an intricate organization now, a secret organization that's holding these secrets that involves probably intelligence agents from many foreign countries.
Man, that is interesting. Well, now, do you have a website, right? spiralgalaxy.org?
Yeah, if your listeners go on there, they can read and hear actually some of the testimony I just described. The deputy commander of Echo Flight gave me an audio tape testimony and permission to use it. And my commander, Fred Mywald, gave an audio testimony. And they can hear it on that website and also see other documents supporting my case, including affidavits from some of the witnesses, letters and affidavits. I think I've got a well-supported case document-wise.
Oh, I believe so, 100%.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely have to go on there and check some of that stuff out. That's pretty cool. Do you have any conferences or any places you'll be doing any speaking or book signings coming up?
No, anybody that wants to buy my book, Unidentified, The UFO Phenomenon, can go to Amazon.com. They can also get my first book, Faded Giant, which describes the incident at Malmstrom, on Amazon also. I'll be speaking in Brazil later this month at the Foz de Iguaçu in Brazil, and then in Germany in April of next year. And that's I've got scheduled at this point.
Well, all right. Thanks again, Mr. Salas, for coming on our show. We enjoyed speaking with you, and we'd love to talk to you again sometime. Thank
you, Kyle. Thank you, Cam.
Hey,
appreciate it.
We had a great time, and I really do. Thank you for coming forward with all your information and with just, having the guts to stand up and tell what you've been involved with and what's happened to you. It really, more people can come forward, and it really does seem to help the cause, and thanks so much. And also, I know it's a little late. Thanks for being a veteran, too, sir. Thank you for serving for that.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, you have a good Thanksgiving and have a good Christmas, and we will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
And we're back with Expanded Perspectives. What an awesome interview with Mr. Salas. I hope everybody enjoyed that. That is a totally creepy story on one hand. Imagine these UFOs show up and then they're able to just shut off the control of your missiles. It's got to be terrifying. And also, like he mentioned, at first, he thought he was under attack. He didn't know what was going on. You got guys upstairs up on terra firma talking about there's lights, strange lights and orbs, and you don't know if it's the Russians attacking. You don't know what's going on. It must have been terrifying.
Well, and even some of the stuff that he told us off air whenever we had everything shut down, he would tell us a little bit more that's not in the book, and he didn't want to really discuss. But it was, I mean, you can really tell it moved him. I mean, and a lot of the other guys had some serious issues with what they were in contact with. And not just at that, but at the other one they talked about where they were shooting rifle rounds at it and things like that.
Yeah, right.
Something went down big time, and the military just was like, you didn't see anything.
No, and it takes a lot of guts for him to, he's a whistleblower, really is. I mean, it takes a lot of guts because he's sworn to secrecy, yet he's gone against that and spoken out about what really happened. I mean, he could still find himself in some trouble.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah, he's not out of the woods with the whole thing. But now that he's public, it's one of those things. It's kind of hard to. If they come after him now, it almost validates what he's talking about. So now he's kind of there like, we're just going to have to try to pretend like we're not hearing it.
Yes. So I'm going to put links on the show notes. Everybody, you need to go over there and get yourself that book for the holidays, or if you're interested in UFOs, it's a really good read. Yeah.
Really good read. I want to take the real quick and thank a fella for an email. I did the story, just kind of touch briefly from Who Forwarded about the Jersey Devil, and Chris Chaos wrote that, and then Chris sent us a great email. He had listened and said thanks for the shout out and the talk. So Chris, thanks for all the kick butt articles that you've been writing, and pumping out on Who Forwarded. Not just that, there's a bunch of birthdays going on. A bunch of the people we've interviewed. I mean, Scotty Roberts' birthday, Nick Redfern's, Jen's, your boy Luke's birthday's coming up. My nephew Blake, his birthday is today.
Jeremiah Hill.
Yep. Chris Copeland.
Yep.
Him and Waz have been out there chasing thylacine. Chris's birthday. We got a bunch of birthdays. And
Cam, your birthday. Your birthday's Wednesday, the 26th. So happy birthday to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yep. Heck yeah. Just one day closer.
Right. And
one day closer.
Guess for Thanksgiving's coming up for us here in America. And we'd like to give some thanks real quick because we've asked some people to write reviews for the show because it helps us. We wanted to try to break 100. Well,
we did it.
We've done it.
Yeah.
So
thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much. In fact, we're going to list some of the people that wrote reviews.
Rich in the UK wrote a review for us on the UK. Thank y'all. If y'all are in the UK, please write and leave reviews on there also. It helps. It keeps everything going.
Yeah.
Folks here, thank y'all so
we got a big
much.
List, right?
Look, okay, here we go. Liberty Man, thank you so very much. Lost Agnes, thank you. Opser, MKNJG, J.W. Buckley, Tom Fig, Hiccup 4, Joseph Danger, Trust No One 31, Nicking 2014, Emily White, and Culinary Pirate. Thank y'all all so much for the kind words, for the writing the reviews. Folks, it really does. It helps us out when people, they go in there, they see that. It keeps us current. It keeps it updating on people's stuff when you see that, whenever it goes on there. And we were like, we would wanted to break 100 before January, and you folks were like, nope, not having it, and just jumped on it. And we can't thank you enough. I mean, it really means a lot to us to get. And if you don't have time to write a review, I completely understand. Just give us a rating. Just keep clicking the ratings if you don't want to take the time to write a review. But it really does. It means the world to us. And even Emily had even written that she listened to it during her pregnancy.
Yeah, right.
And that was great. Yeah, and that the baby knows our voice. Like, what's up, baby?
Yeah.
What's up, baby? Yeah. Hopefully it's not like an alien hybrid baby, but if it is, come shake my hand with your long fingers. What's happening?
Yeah.
So it's been great, folks. Thank y'all so very much. Everybody that's been contacting us from Dark Matter Radio, thank you all so much. We've been getting a lot of tweets, a lot of messages. I mean, we get stuff, Leslie, Eugene, everybody's just firing stuff at us. Thank y'all so much for listening to us there, for being along for the ride. So, I could go on for hours, but I got nothing else to say. Everybody have a super safe week. Everybody that's off, have fun at Thanksgiving. We're still going to release our show. Our Elite show is going to be out on Thanksgiving Day. So if you're traveling, take us with you. Throw us in your pocket. Pop us in your MP3 or whatnot while you're going down the road. Let your kids, your mom, your wife, whoever, introduce us to some folks. Take us around. Tell everybody, go, look, there's other people like us. So throw us all in there. We'll go out with you. We'll have some tryptophan turkey and some dressing and some giblet gravy, cranberry sauce. I'm just excited about eating some chocolate pie. Oh, man. So, when you listen to that, So, anyway, everybody just have a great time. I wish my arms were long enough to give everybody a big old hug. Everybody just be safe.
That's right. Man, and if you're in Buffalo, I feel bad for you. I mean, holy cow. You people are like under 10 feet of snow right now?
Ooh, they can't even get this.
I can't imagine that. Can you imagine that?
No. No, I love the coal, but that's a little ridiculous.
That's a little ridiculous.
That's a little ridiculous. Come on down here. Texas is a big place. We got plenty of room.
Oh, that's right. Well, everybody take care, and we will speak to the elitist on Thursday. For everybody else, we will see you next Monday.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody here in the States. Everybody else, have a safe and happy week. We will talk to you all next time.
Peace.